Overnight, the House of Representatives passed a portion of the bill that was broken by President Joe Biden. And while that was fast, it was just yesterday we had reported to you that he has said that they were going to be splitting the bill into different parts, and they're going to pass some later. Now, what is going to be the path forward that they're saying for stimulus packages? Checks all the provisions. I'm going to get you all the details in this video. This is your breaking news stimulus check update and stimulus package update. Let me know your thoughts and take a look at these headlines. House passes $40 billion Ukrainian aid. Bill House passes nearly $40 billion in aid for Ukraine. And since the package onto the Senate now, this is significantly more than what we had heard before as well. Now we had heard floated around 15 billion, 30 billion. Now we see 40 billion passed in the House overwhelmingly and making its way to the Senate. Now also, as I mentioned, keep in mind that this was coupled with pandemic assistance funding, which we could not get bipartisan agreement upon. And we had heard that there were talks and there were verbal agreements, but then when it came to legislation, they did not have support, and they tried to couple it with Ukrainian aid to see if they could pass it through tandem, but it didn't work and had to split it apart. Ukrainian aid has gone through, and now we're still waiting for that pandemic funding, which we're hearing is very likely going to be needed because we're hearing that a new wave of the pandemic is coming. I've been sharing with you the updates on the cases, and they are in the incline. And experts are warning that come fall in winter, we could see another wave of some variant of Omicron hit pretty hard, which could again overwhelm hospitals and disrupt our economy. Now also, with this Ukrainian war continuing on, we're hearing that on May 9th, VE Day, that Russia has said they're planning to continue on and they're preparing for what could be years of war, which means that this is going to be devastating our economy globally. And we're going to continue to likely see inflation, high gas prices, high food prices. This is going to be impacting us, and we're going to have to see how Congress responds as of it right now. They're talking about gas stimulus checks, more provisions, maybe a gas tax holiday, something to help combat all of these high prices. We heard from the president just the other day, and he blamed it on Putin. He said this was Putin's price hike, and also the lack of support from the GOP. Now, if you missed that video, check it out after this one. But you guys, we're gonna see how they respond to all this. And we had heard them say that first immediately they wanted to pass this Ukrainian aid, and the next more pandemic assistance and funding. We're gonna see if there's going to be funding for therapeutics and vaccines to battle the pandemic, maybe more direct assistance. We've also heard that there was bills that have been written up by Republicans for tax credits, and also if legislation cannot get through, we had heard that President Joe Biden has changed his mind on executive orders and said he is taking it into consideration if they cannot get legislation through the traditional means through reconciliation with a majority vote. He is willing to bypass all the Congress and legislation just do executive orders. Now we will see. I will keep you up to date on that. But you guys, let's dive into the latest of what unfolded last night, and we will likely see coming up here with the new legislation. Alright, so link in the description below to this CNN Politics article, and let me know your thoughts. I think it was less than 48 hours we heard the request from President for immediate passage for Ukrainian aid, and there's a lot of people saying we haven't been waiting for a year for stimulus provisions. Listen, it's very likely as something's gonna pass. It's going to happen between now and elections because they're going to want to remind voters to incentivize them to keep them in power. Let me know your thoughts, you guys, but take a look at this article that says the Democrat-led House of Representatives voted 368 to 57. That is the vast majority, so just to inform you, that includes most Republicans and Democrats all voting in favor of it on Tuesday evening to pass a roughly $40 billion bill to deliver Ukrainian aid as they continue to face Russia's brutal assault. All 57 of votes in opposition were Republicans, and as you know right now, there was a lot of Republicans concerned with the 40 years high inflation and adding to our nation debt. so likely their opposition was so to add more so to our economy's debt and inflation. Now the measures will next need to be passed by the Senate before it goes to President Joe Biden's desk to be signed into law. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said earlier in the day on Tuesday that after the House approved the package, that the Senate will move swiftly to get the measure passed to be sent to Biden's desk. Now, usually when they're moving this quickly, that means it's very possible that we could see a vote in the Senate today or tomorrow. I will keep you up to date here on the channel. Now, aid to Ukraine has been a rare bright spot of bipartisanship on Capitol Hill, with Democrats and Republicans largely rallying around the call to help the nation as it faces Russia attacks. Lawmakers unveiled bill text earlier in the day ahead of the House vote. The legislation the House approved provides funding for a long list of priorities, including military and humanitarian assistance. Now, jumping down, the article says the House vote comes after Biden's call on Congress to immediately pass a new Ukrainian aid bill. As he warned, the existing aid would soon run out. Get to my desk in the next few days, Biden said in a statement on Monday, just 2 days ago. Biden has previously urged Congress to pass additional pandemic relief funding as well, as I mentioned, and the new assistance to Ukraine at the same time. But he said on Monday that congressional leaders told him to decouple the efforts in order to more quickly get the aid to Ukraine. Congressional Republicans had insisted on the two issues moving on separate legislative tracks. So we heard him say immediately pass the Ukrainian aid because funding is running out and they need more support. And there were going to be the next dealing with this pandemic funding and getting support on that. So that is to come. Now also reading on it says Biden initially requested $33 billion to help our Ukraine fight Russia. But Congress has proposed billions more for food aid and military equipment, and they said we cannot afford to delay in this vital war effort. Biden said in a statement, I am prepared to accept that these two measures must move separately so that the Ukrainian aid bill can get to my desk right away. So you guys, that is the latest. As overnight, the House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed the bills for more Ukrainian aid, and we're hearing that the next step is going to be them focusing on more pandemic funding to help battle the pandemic with therapeutics and vaccines. Also, we're going to see if there's going to be more direct assistance calls for gas stimulus checks, child tax credits, getting rid of student loan debt, and assortment of different things to help out economically as inflation is up, gas prices are up, food prices are up. We're going to be seen, and also I'm going to keep you up to date as states are going to stepping up and pass their own forms of stimulus checks.